Hello again. I'm your host, Steve Letarte. This is NASCAR Inside the Race, live post Pocono, post Tricky Triangle edition. Chase Briscoe, for the third time in his career, goes to victory lane. More importantly, the first time for driving for the coach, first time for Joe Gibbs Racing, in an epic battle, holding off his teammate Denny Hamlin while saving gas. Pocono had a little bit of everything. It had that beautiful Pocono weather at the finish, the wet Pocono weather at the start. We had strategy. We had some fuel savings. And more importantly, we had a sellout, a monster crowd, an electric atmosphere. The infield was slammed. The grandstands were slammed. The place felt amazing. And I think it was an entertaining race. What did I think of it overall? Look, I was entertained. I thought the fuel strategy was quite captivating. I thought it was really tough to pass. We knew that was going to be. That's Pocono in a nutshell. We saw some brake failures. We saw some mistakes. We saw, dare I say, crew chief Dale Earnhardt Jr. go to victory lane on Saturday with Connor Zilisch. So I had a little bit of everything. So for all those reasons, we have a full lineup today, full lineup of people to break it down. Let's start with West Coast. We have Alex Weaver, who skipped her trip to Pocono, but she decided to join us today. I don't know how is you not going to Pocono? Everyone loves Pocono.
I do love Pocono. I love Pocono Organics. I love seeing the pull-in of Pocono at the tunnel with the fountain and the water feature there. It's just lovely. But no, I decided to stay in 70 degrees, UV index of 11 when it was raining in Pocono and a rain delay, and you guys were just filling time on there on the Amazon coverage. I didn't feel bad about my decision, but I'm glad you guys got the race in yesterday.
Filling time and consuming empty calories. That's what happens in a rain delay. Also to join today, we got the mayor, Jeff Burton, who he spent the weekend preparing for his upcoming stint on the Turner Altcast of the in-season tournament. We're going to chat with him about that later. Jeffrey, Pocono, in a nutshell, I mean, it had about everything I expected for Pocono. Good, bad, and indifferent, right? Not all highs, not all lows. It had a little bit of everything.
Yeah, track position at Pocono has been important as long as I've been going there. And you always have a few people that get a little bit more speed than others, and a little bit more speed there means a ton of track position. And I'm trying to understand, is the UV index of 11, is that good?
I didn't know. I didn't know if it was good or bad.
That's my Roman Empire, is the UV index of places. That's how you know if you're needing to wear sunscreen or not. So anything higher than like a 9, Burton, is creme.
Okay, hold on. Oh, wait. Hold on. I don't know if you've ever hung out with Jeff Burton, but Jeff Burton has to wear sunscreen in the evening. Jeff wears sunscreen at night. So the UV index.
My complexion is this. Like,
well, look.
Yeah, maybe not good for Burton.
Well, I don't know if he studied UV index, but he's an engineer, and I needed an engineer to help me on here. Championship crew chief, our man from MRN, Todd Gordon, is also on the show today. I need Todd because Pocono was complicated, confusing, and in the end, it was some really great calls and even a mistake that was managed by the driver out of the 19. Todd, how was your calculator and how was your headache when the checkered flag fell at Pocono?
This was right in my pocket. This is a type of race that I loved. I mean, you look back, strategy pieces, the eventual race winning move was a short pit on an expected caution. I mean, that's what road course racing used to be all about. I remember making those calls, and cool to see somebody do that. We saw execution work out for some. We saw execution failures bury some others. I think a cool weekend, and you start the math backwards. And that went back to you on a Saturday. When you were kind of getting to watch Dale Jr. and do his piece, I thought that was an execution success as well.
I've never been more comfortable watching my friend be uncomfortable in my entire life. It was awesome standing over there pacing on top of the pit box. We're going to get into that, but you mentioned it. Let's talk about the day. Chase Briscoe ends up going to victory lane at Pocono. How the race was won, the pass for the race happened in the middle of the race on a what seemed to be meaningless to most green flag pit stop. Set the stage. Chase Briscoe running just inside the top 10. Micah McDowell fails a right front rotor. He is coming to pit road. He actually gets his car to pit road, but there's some debris coming off the car. People think a caution might come out. James Small pits his car a few laps before the window. When I talk fuel window, a race at Pocono is like playing hopscotch, basically. And you go from lily pad to lily pad of these windows. And you know, if you're on a lily pad, you can jump to the next one. And if you jump 3 times, next thing you know, you're to the end of the race. That's how I would explain it, right? It's like a road trip along the way. He felt like he was close enough, maybe a little outside the window. So they pit. You don't lose a lap because it's such a long lap there, 50-something seconds. A couple laps later, the caution comes out. The 19 then becomes the lead when everybody pits. Todd, from a crew chief, that's like the warm and fuzzy. That is Christmas morning when you hit that right.
Yeah, it's one of those situations. I felt like probably 78 was when the window opened for these guys. So they came at 74, 4 laps early. But if you anticipate that caution, Steve, we feel like there's going to be 5 laps under caution. I'm going to count on banking 3 laps back because my driver's going to save me fuel. That puts me right at the edge of the fuel window. James Small, one of 2 crew chiefs that took advantage of that. Miles Stanley for Josh Berry came as well. I think he came at 73. James came at 74. Caution flew about 3 laps later. You feel like you just hit the lottery.
So they get track position, and now it's this game of, hey, when do you pit the last and how much fuel you need? We have Brad Keselowski and a couple guys we are going to talk about because they had up and down days. They were trying to stay close enough to have a short pit stop. The 11 and the 19. We got the video, Dila. Let's show it. This was the final stop. So let's put them side by side. Needing what we thought was the reasonable amount of fuel equal to both cars. Watch the difference. The 19, when they drop the left side, our man Briscoe leaves. On the right side, Denny Hamlin, remember, messed this up at Charlotte. So he waits. 11 pulls off pit road. Instantly on the broadcast, I'm like, well, the 19 doesn't have enough gas. He's going to be short on gas. Alex, I'm going to come to you on this one. He said in pre-race, they've been fast. They have to execute. You know this team. You cover this team. You know James Small. You know the pressure they feel of needing to win at Gibbs. My heart sank a little. I was a little empathetic, like, oh, no, is this how they're going to lose the next one? Your thoughts on kind of how that played out and what it looked like from your seat?
Yeah, I mean, it's a year to the date that Christopher Bell announced that Chase Briscoe was going to be going to this 19 at New Hampshire. And then we're seeing this guy who's leading a race at Pocono, first time ever driving for a championship team. This is a championship car. It's a championship owner. There are no expectations from Chase Briscoe except you make the playoffs and you're contending for a championship this year. And when I talked to Chase at the official announcement for him being the driver of the 19 last season, they basically said, like, I have to make the playoffs. Like, this is what I have to do. So I knew that Chase, he's such a good guy. He's such a great driver. He's a true racer at heart. But I could tell that there was some pressure from him this season of knowing what this car was capable of doing, knowing that James Small is an excellent crew chief on top of the box, that he had to go out there and he had to at least be running in a dominant fashion pretty early on. And yeah, to watch James Small, the stress that man I know had to feel when Chase Briscoe pulls off early. It was an 11-second. Yeah, the 11 team obviously on pit road for a lot longer, but the 19, 11 seconds on pit road. Steve, you were talking about it on the broadcast. I mean, it was like, oh, no way he got enough fuel. And Chase, I know, had to feel horrible inside the race car for putting them in that position anyway. So it was good to see that kid get a win. Great to see what he's been doing with the 19. And it was the most excited I've ever seen James Small on a pit box. And that includes all of the times I've seen him with Truex. So I know the pressure was thick over there at that team this year.
Yeah, and then it came down to execution. Costa comes out, they save a little gas, and James says, I'm going to clean it up for a podcast, that they are less than ideal on fuel. That's how I would word it. Less than ideal. He says, we are less than ideal, in air quotes. Jeff, we have this fancy new tool on Amazon. Basically, it calculates miles per gallon burn bar. I went back and looked at it. Chase Briscoe, most of the day, got about 4.8 miles per gallon. Anybody that buys a car gets it, right? You get whatever, 20 in the city and 40 on the highway. You get the concept of miles per gallon. That final run, he got 5.3 miles per gallon, a half a mile further out of every gallon of gas. I have him 2 gallons a lap, 2 gallons short. So we'll say there's 18 gallons on board. That tells me that Chase Briscoe, with the vice and pressure of needing to win for the first time for coach, found 9 extra miles, 9 miles, over 3 laps, nearly 4 laps, while holding off a 7-time winner, Denny Hamlin. How do you do it, man? I know you've had to do it. I know you've seen what they've done. How impressive. Try to explain to the fan how impressive what Briscoe did in those closing laps. And not closing, not 5 laps, right? It was a 25 or 30 lap run, a long, stressful run to the finish.
Well, that in some ways actually helps, right? Because the best thing you can do to save fuel is to know it right off the bat, know you're short, and then immediately start working on it. Once, if James Smalls would have waited 10 laps into the run and said, all right, buddy, here's the problem. We do not have enough fuel. Instead, James did a great job of going ahead and informing him what the situation was. Now that gave him, although laps are a disadvantage because that's more fuel you have to burn, it's also an advantage because there's more opportunity to save fuel. So now he knew immediately, how do I save fuel? How do I keep this lead? What do I need to do? But that objective was from the minute they dropped the green flag on the restart, not 10 laps to go. And so to me, we talk about it all the time. You have to accept your situation. And in this case, they accepted their situation and they were willing to stay out. They didn't get a caution. They might run out. They might have to pit. So be it. If we pit now, we're done. We're not going to win. This gives us a chance to win. And so, especially knowing the challenge of how hard it is to pass, you use that to your advantage as well. So a lot of things worked against them, but some other things worked for them. And then the execution and the information. At one point, teams did not have data. So think this whole thing through. They were early in the race. I saw a lot of teams did not have data. If you don't have data, you cannot help your driver understand how much fuel he's burning. So the data worked, the information worked. He was able to take that, put his car in the right spot to continually hurt Denny, made it all work. And that is what teamwork is. That's preparation. That's understanding what we think we need to do to save fuel. However, let's try some other stuff, because there were times it wasn't working. James, that's not gonna work. You got to change it. And he changed it. And not only did he save more fuel, he actually went a little quicker. So you have to be willing to work on things, be on the fly. Now let's talk about the negative. Putting fuel in the car is as basic in today's racing as getting the left front on the line, hitting your marks, lifting at the right place, all those things. Drivers today, crew chiefs today, they have to be in sync about when is this car going to leave, because you are working on tenths of a second of fuel. And so the mistake that was made is a mistake that we see happen often. But in today's racing, it can't happen. You have to have the communication. You have to understand. At one point, remember, Joe Gibbs Racing had the boards. They would go over there with an iPad and it would tell the driver when to go. The reason they did that is because how much fuel you get will win you a race or lose you a race. And in this case, they did a great job of dealing with the circumstances that they created. But moving forward, you can't create those circumstances. You have to have the system in place so the driver knows when he leaves, that is communicated, and the driver executes. In this case, they got by with it, but many cases we see teams don't.
Cleaning up a few things I see in the chat. How fast is fuel going in a race car? About 1.7 gallons per second. It's not a straight linear line. At the start of a dump can, it dumps faster because there's 12 gallons pushing its way down. The last couple gallons go in a little bit slower, but you figure about 1.7 gallons per second. It takes about a second and a half to go from can 1 to can 2. There's a million different calculations. So I had them a couple gallons short. So I think it's fair to say that he was off the pace. You said his car actually ran faster as he saved gas. So when I go back and digest that final run, I feel like he absolutely was 85% pace for the first 20 laps of that run. And what that does is not basically piss the tire off. So then later in the run, when you're lifting early and the tire's not mad, you actually can run faster there's only so much life in a tire. Todd, it's okay that fans don't love that you can't clear a guy at Pocono, but I won there in 2014 twice, and knowing no one was going to pass us once we got out front. I mean, that we knew that on Saturday, right? And there's a lot. I'm not here to defend this current vehicle. I do think there's some areas, specifically the road courses, that it could be better. I don't think this is a product of the vehicle. I think this is Pocono. This is the racetrack we all went to. That's how it races.
It's no different than like baseball. Not every baseball game is 13 to 12. This is a different type of race, and it's one where there's strategy involved, and there's opportunity to pass. just the opportunity to pass the leader becomes more difficult. The ability to especially turn 2, getting through the bumps in turn 2, you need clean air. And when you get to that, it's a challenge. But that's a challenge that you guys like you and I loved, because it was all about strategizing your way out. Really, James Small made the winning call. It was coming to pit road at lap 74 under green, and seeing an opportunity for a caution to come. And he kept him there and got him packed full of fuel. Like, when you look at it, they actually stopped, made sure it was full. It's packed full. Gas man stays in. When you drop the car to flat, that's when the tank can actually get completely full, because the fuel cell, as it's jacked up on either side, there's an air pocket. So they waited, got it full here. They didn't get it full on the next one. That's a communication piece between James and Chase. Apparently Chase knew he was supposed to wait, but took off, kind of a misstep in the whole mental process. But they've got to work on the communication side. James got to help him with that, making sure that as they get to the left side, he's telling them, we're waiting, just to make sure, as Jeff talked about, we race everywhere and all the details matter. And this is one here that they recovered from. But to your point, him backing up the corners, getting off the brake pedal, the front tires don't get as much heat in them. They keep some turn in them. I think it does help the longer run of the car. And he actually probably has some notes that Chase Briscoe will put in his notes for how he needs to come back here, and learned a little bit out of that, saving fuel of where he'll make pace coming back.
Well, for every winner. Go ahead, Weaves, jumps.
With the 80 to 85 running, I mean, Chase even said it. Briscoe said it after in his post-race interview. He said, it's amazing how much better I could run my line when I was going a little slower. I slowed things down and I was able to not overdrive. And Chase even said it himself. He said, I have a tendency to overdrive and not hit my marks when I'm going full on. So the fact that they were keeping me calm and slowing me down inside of that race car, I was able to hit my marks a little bit more. So a total team effort, and credit to the 19 for the right call by James Small, and then also the driving by Chase Briscoe.
Yeah, and so when I look at who he beat, I think Denny Hamlin in 11 ran a really, really good race, and they got beat by that pit call that Todd pointed out. Blaney ran 3rd. He had a speeding penalty. I want to cover him. Busher, I thought, ran a good race in 4th, and Chase in 5th. And let's talk John Hunter in 6th. John Hunter Nemechek, great run out of the 42. So the 11, 17, 42, I kind of loved what they did, but I do have a list of drivers that quite could have. Now, I don't know what would have happened, but they made the day more difficult. Brad, Blaney, and Byron, the old 3 Bs, had B- or C+ effort, because they didn't
make A's, did they?
They did not make A's.
Let's start with, you're giving this 6 the C?
Yeah,
that's
C.
high. I think that's high. That's passing.
For someone who graduated on the curve, Weaves, I'm a C guy. I recognize a C performance when I see one. I am a C level person.
Oh,
I got
God.
this wheeling.
Yeah.
For Brad, let's start with the egregious mistake. Now, it's easy because we've all done it. I don't know if you've done it, Todd, but I've for sure done it. Right here, leading the race, 77 looking left, up in front of the 77's a 6. He comes on pit road. There's actually a radio conversation there. They thought they just came on pit road by themselves. It took almost a lap for them to realize it was closed. You pit when pit road is closed. That means you are tail end. This is just, like I said, I don't want to make it sound like it happens. People make this mistake, but this is a little like the Briscoe not waiting for it to be full. This is a mental or a communication mistake on the entire 6 organization.
Yeah, this isn't just driver. Well, and Jeff, you can talk to this, but spotters got to be up there. When you're coming to pit road, there's so much you've got to pay attention to. Gears, dash, making sure you get to seeing the light in your peripheral. That's a little different piece. Jeremy Bullins or TJ have got to be on the radio, letting them know pit road's closed. We're not coming.
There's a time that radio silence is required. And we see this happen. We see this happen at short tracks. And I'm not saying this is exactly what caused this issue, but like when you're racing at Bristol or you're racing in Martinsville, that is not the time for the driver when the caution comes out to be just blah, 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 blah. You need to give that information and get off the radio, because when you're coming around to pit or not pit, you need spotter, crew chief clear. They need to be able to talk to you. There needs to be no chatter on the radio at certain points of the racetrack under caution. And so we had a driver, a crew chief, and a spotter. And it's hard to imagine in today's world that this happens. Now, mistakes happen. The end all be all is that the driver, he is the last guy that looks. and the light's right there, and you have to know where those lights are. You have to know if you can see it. The spotter can see it also, because it flashes.
I will
on
say,
all
Jeff,
sides.
I will say at Pocono, from the booth, spotters are kind of above us. It's a dang long way. And in the bright sunshine, I couldn't tell if it was green or yellow out the window.
Well, look, I'm not saying it's easy, but the driver, you have
No, I mean for the spotter.
you have
Yeah,
multiple
yeah,
opportunities, right? And so yes, this is just a mistake that happens, and professional athletes make mistakes all the time. That we're like, how does that happen? It happens because you're under pressure. It happens because we're human. We make mistakes. But in this case, it went through 3 people, before the ultimate mistake was made, and they'll clean it up. And by the way, other teams will learn from it too. I mean, that's what happens in situations like this. Everybody says, okay, how do we prevent that from happening? But that was the first mistake they made, put them in a bad spot. Then they made another one later that pretty much ended their opportunity.
Yeah, last caution, the 6 cars running with more fuel on board, trying to, users fresher tires, run a good speed. And they basically, they're running a few laps longer, and Jeremy Bullins tells Brad to pit. And Brad says, man, I'm running some good lap times. I think I can run longer. There's a little bit of a debate, and he concedes to run one more lap. They cross the start-finish line, head down to turn 1, and then the caution comes out. And it was like, Brad even said it on the post-race show on Prime. He said, man, I should have just not said anything. Bullins had the right strategy. And it's, that's a mistake of maybe bad luck, right? I understand why they were running the laps they were, but you knew what a caution was going to do. A caution was going to risk it, and they just weren't aggressive enough to overcome the mistake. I think really, in my mind, it was as simple as that. I needed him to be more aggressive after losing track position.
What do you do in that situation, though? Because, Todd, for you and Steve, too. The crew chief is making the call, but then you have the owner who's, also the driver.
So I feel like the owner driver was giving fair information, which his statement was, it's driving good. I can run further. And I believe that, look, that's hard for Bullins because he is the driver owner. But I think if you believe pitting is the call, you just have to say, no, this time. Because I want my driver to say he can run another lap. I need that info. Like, hey, man, it's not bad. I can run longer. Yep, that's great, but I don't care. Pit anyway. But it's hard.
But you've been there, Steve. When the field peels off and you get clean air, it's like all of a sudden, hey, I can run lap times. And if I pit right here, I'm going to cycle myself right back into the dirty air. Like there's a reward. It's not like they got over. There's a reward. They've got clean air. He's making lap time. If he comes in pits, they think they're going to cycle back out into the traffic that they were just in. There's a reason why you'd have that conversation. And Brad is he's cerebral. He thinks a lot of I had him in the Busch series back when or in Nationwide series when I first went to Team Penske. I learned a lot about him, and he's very part of the decision making. But to your point, that's a point where Bullins has just got to, as a crew chief, you've got to say risk reward. We don't need the risk. We've already had our setback. We don't need to take the risk on to afford ourselves the opportunity of a second setback.
And I'll jump in here real quick too. I think that every team is in a different situation. And so if I'm Jeremy and I'm Brad, I'm thinking win.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to put themselves in, right?
Yeah,
and so a gamble is doing something that prevents you from winning. That's how you have to think about it. When you're making this call, you have to be thinking, what do I need to do here to put myself in best opportunity to win this race? And whatever that call is, you have to live with it. And that's not necessarily the case for some other people. Some other people, they want more points. Points aren't going to do a thing for Brad Keselowski. He needs to win, and they have to call the races accordingly, as every team does. Every team has to call the races based on the situation that they're in.
So I don't think there's a lot of analysis that's going to be assigned with this next driver, but I do think we could talk about it. Ryan Blaney had no cool suit. They talked to him after the race. Man, he sounded tired. It sounded like it was a long race, a little warm, and just a pretty intense race, right? Pocono can be. Maybe not physically as much as just as mentally, but he was speeding. First, he started in the back because of qualifying, and they had to change a starter. And then sped, went back to the back, recovered all the way up to third. Speeding is just a mistake. They're all going to make them. I don't think there's a whole lot to digest there. William Byron's the other one who started in the back after wrecking in qualifying, repairing the car. I just didn't love the pit calls for the 24. I thought they kind of got stacked in the back in a bad situation and then got in a bad spot on a restart. And those two things together were enough to kind of eliminate the 24's day when you look at this day right here. So looking at this graph, this is the 24, right, D-Lo, I'm looking at?
Yes.
This is 24. So right here, lap 96, they pit and they give up all this track position, and you just cannot recover. You know, they were kind of tracking with the leaders until that point.
It didn't make any sense because this pit, you weren't in a window to be able to finish. All that Rudy got out of this was an opportunity to not have to wait on fuel later.
So that's what he was doing, right? So he didn't jump to another lily pad, like I was saying. He wasn't in a window, but he put some fuel in the car. So on the green flag stop, he thought he could be as quick as the tires could be changed, and he just couldn't get through the restart.
And I think he took 2 tires on that final stop, trying to get himself forward. But just that's, I'm sure that Rudy is rethinking that whole process, because at the end of the day, they had driven forward, and I can understand it in ways because they had driven forward all day long. If you look at the slope of that, they continued every time they were set back, they drove back forward. But that setback, it wasn't far enough out on tires. I don't think it put them in a position. They kind of got boxed in and didn't make any track position. It ultimately buried their day.
Other big storylines from the race. Let's talk brakes. Brake failure. We see the 35 of Riley Herbst explode a rotor. We see the 23 of Bubba Wallace. What a day. I mean, what a weekend. Oof. Great in practice. Won't crank qualifying. Goes to the back, and then the tunnel corner right here. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can kind of see it just outside the right front wheel opening. There's a gray piece. That is brake rotor. And he is going into the tunnel with no brakes. Big impact. And then shockingly, almost Formula One-esque, they pull the 45 in, still running fine, and work on the brakes. I can't say with 100% confidence what they did. I thought they changed rotors. They could have done some other things. So let's just talk about what happens here. Pocono, long straightaways that cool the brakes, then you use a lot of brake. So that's really hard on these cast iron rotors. Cooling is very hard to kind of figure out how you want to do that. The other thing these teams do, air gets pulled in the center of the rotor, and like a wind vane, as it spins, it sucks the air out and blows through the rotor. And what they'll do is they'll fill the inner grooves of these rotors with like a metal band. You know, like when you get a box weave shipped to you and like there's a metal band riveted around there, you have to like cut open, or like a plastic band. Like if you buy, oh, come on, Weaver, hold on. Weaver, when you buy something on Amazon, you know the plastic band that you can't cut off without scissors and you're pissed and it comes on your package?
It's like 1/2 inch wide, pretty thin.
I can't believe
they stuff that inside the rotor.
Yeah, so they fill that with these bands. So people will say they're banding the rotor because they're limiting the air going through here.
On the outside of the package?
Yeah,
it's like a heavy package that has plastic wrapping around it.
Man, that fiance of yours must unpackage your
Amazon. But y'all need to work on your Amazon orders. If you're having that much shipped to the house, you got to cut off.
It comes by the pallet. They got to band that stuff onto the pallet at my house.
See, well, 2 kids at home, not anymore, but you did.
Yeah, so they take these bands and they like fill the inside of the rotor to reduce the airflow. And I believe that there was a decision made company wide that they didn't love. I don't have any proof to this, but you know, 2 guys break a rotor and then the 45 comes in and make a change. I give them credit. They did it under yellow, only lost 2 laps. Jeff, as a driver, if you're Reddick, you don't love the situation, but does it make you feel better that they're like, hey man, we're not going to leave you out there. Like, we're not going to leave you out there for the inevitable, the potential failure of brakes. You're our guy. We're going to come in here. We're going to just accept it, take the black eye and make the change.
I mean, I think that's the right thing to do. You know, it's a difficult decision to make, but you know, wrecking a race car, potentially hurting a race car driver isn't going to do any good for you. You know, obviously, you know, you see best finishing car was 32nd. You know, he is in a point battle. However, he always, you know, in pretty good shape. Maybe this was the best decision in a bad situation, and that happens every time. Sometimes there's no good answer. You just have to take the one that's the least bad, and that's what it feels like to me they did in this situation. And one more thing, just to add to the complication of it, is that we have broke rotors at Indy and Pocono for years. And is it because it's too hot or because it's too cold?
Yes.
Right. And that's what's difficult. Like, the straightaways are so long that the rotor has such a massive amount of time to cool down that some people have broke rotors because they've cooled them too much, because then the spike heat goes so high and so low.
Yeah.
Some people broke them because they're too hot. So you would think it's an easy thing, but it's not. And this is something that's happened as long as I've been in the sport. We've been seeing this. And I'm assuming it's not going to go away unless we went to carbon rotors or something like that. But the cost of that would be pretty high.
Yeah, you look at it, and this is the biggest place that we would ever challenge this because of how long that front straightaway is. We always looked at how do you keep that thermal mass kind of similar and not get too cold and too hot and have the big cycles. So I think 2311 probably off of history was someplace. We had a different tire. Speeds were up about 3/4 of a second. It threw them a little bit of a curveball that they probably weren't prepared for.
Well, and I think Reddit too. When they did come down for pit stops too, they were turning the car off down. He was saying that his temperatures were hot inside of the race car. So I think out of precaution, I don't know how many times I've seen a team take a progressive, not reacting. It was very F1. Steve, you said it like perfectly well. It was, I don't know how many times in NASCAR I've seen a team that their teammates have had issues and they've immediately gone to the garage and, hey, we need to fix this. I was a little surprised. Even Bubba said at the Infield Care Center, like they have to run their own race and worry about what else they have going on. But I was, if I'm Tyler Reddick, I was a little frustrated that I'm coming into the garage reactively.
Yeah, it can be frustrating and can be scary, right? The brake situation is scary. And on the kind of on the trend of scary, a pit road issue, I'm going to tell you this one here was scary. AJ Allmendinger comes onto pit road, hits the tire out of his tire carrier's hand, and this thing gets punted. Watch this, right? Boom.
That's 48 pounds.
All right,
48 pounds.
48 pounds.
Yes.
So 48 pounds, that's JP Keeley, who is the rear tire changer for SVG. Surprisingly enough, he was a tire changer for Dinger a year ago. Now, that guy is a D1 athlete. He played professional lacrosse, right? So this guy has taken some hits before. But so I say this. Pit crew guys have turned into giants. I walk down there on pit road. I'm 6'4", and I feel little. Weaves, I don't know how you feel walking. I mean, these guys, I feel like I'm on the sideline of a football game. These guys are unbelievable. They kind of scoff at me when they're like, you were on a pit crew once? I'm like, I'm as shocked as you are. I mean, you guys are absolute athletes. 50 pounds hitting him and finishing the pit stop, a very scary situation on pit road.
How fast are the cars pulling into their pit stop at that?
So pit road speed is 60 miles an hour. So let's talk about that too. You know, we go, pit road speed. Well, you want to go, go stand on the side of, now you wouldn't have to worry about in LA because you go like 5 miles an hour on the interstate out there. But here in North Carolina, where you run 60 miles an hour on the interstate, it's like 60 miles an hour. Like this isn't like a side street. They're running 60 miles an hour. So as he slows down in there, 3,500-pound pace car punts this tire. I have no idea how fast the tire is going. What's that side? Let's look at the side view again. This side view. Okay, here's the onboard. Bang, bang. I mean, unbelievable that he's able to.
I don't care if that's 10 miles an hour. It's 50 pounds.
Yeah, watch this side view right here. I mean, look how fast that tire goes. So I hope. So look, he finished the stop. I'm not willing to say he's unhurt because he could. Like, we'll have to wait this week. I hope that there's no lingering effects. I have no idea. It was a really scary situation for everyone involved. So we're hoping that JP feels great, and we hope to see him back at the racetrack this week. He finished the pit stops of the 88 all day. But I looked at the penalty report. I didn't see a penalty. It should be a penalty. It should be at least an uncontrolled tire or a pit stop interference. But it's just a great reminder of what happens on pit road.
They did end up starting tail end for pitting while pit road was closed, which I think they had to come. They came back down to do it. And probably knew that they were going to get the penalty for that one, but it didn't show in the pit report, the penalty report.
So, we talk about drivers and the danger. I will tell you, I went over a hood. It was nothing as severe as that, right? But I just don't think you allow that it can happen. You kind of just jump out there and do your job. Alex, I know you have relationships with all these different crew members up and down pit road and having to cover them. is it normal to you now? Like when you bring a fan for the first time and they watch a car stop, right? Like you've watched these cars and now here it is 30 feet away and you can feel the heat off from it. You can smell the brakes, right? And it's just this big, massive steel moving around. I know I take it for granted, which is not a good thing, right? It's just we see it time and time and time again. Have you been down there so long now that it's just kind of normal until something like this happens?
Yeah, for sure. And you look at these guys. I mean, you mentioned like how I must feel on pit road with these guys. They're towering D1 athletes. I don't really think about it just because that's what I'm so used to. These guys are the creme de la creme. They are the top in the sport. They have their jobs for a reason, and they're just pristine, in shape, working out, watching film. I mean, they are still in their prime athletic conditioning. So for me, it's normal until you see something that's scary, that you're like, these guys are basically walking out into traffic to change tires in the middle of traffic on the interstate while cars are going 50, 60 miles an hour around them. And they're just taking it on the chin and doing it multiple times a day during a race and having to execute it flawlessly. So I hope that fans give the pit crews enough credit because they are true athletes. It's one of the hardest jobs in all of sports, in my opinion.
They're playing real life. They're playing real life Frogger. That's what they're doing. I mean, if you go back to the kids, they're playing real life Frogger.
Oh, no. Jeff's broken. Look at that.
Press your button on the top, Jeff.
Some of my best work right there. Oh, no, he's not muted. He's even showing off his green light. Just to put it in perspective, I mentioned it. He played Division I lacrosse at Robert Morris and then went to the National Lacrosse League. It was canceled, I think, around COVID, but he played 3 years of professional lacrosse. So the guy knows how to train and to be at that level, which is great because I'm going to tell you, if you're not that big of an athlete and you're not in that great of shape, if that tire would hit me, we wouldn't be doing this pod. You'd be visiting me like somewhere. I'd be in traction somewhere.
Well, and you look at the rosters of these guys too, Jeff.
Jeff's making my day right here.
So you look at the roster of these guys, and you have Super Bowl winners, you have national championship winners. I mean, every single.
I heard Hendrick was at the combine. Did you hear that? I heard Hendrick took a group to the NFL combine, like the combine, the NFL combine.
I mean, it's just the top athletes in the world, and they still are. We hear about all the time. It's a retired athlete, and they used to be a former NFL player. These guys are still working out NFL caliber workouts. I mean, they are going to the shop every single day. They are sitting down and watching hours and hours of film. I mean, both of you guys know, working with these crews and with these teams, how hard working these men and women are down there on pit road. It's just unbelievable what they do. And when you see a 50-pound tire flying at one of them, it's if it were me or Steve, Todd, maybe you could handle it, but me and Steve, we're down for the count.
No, I'm down for the count before I even thought about getting off the wall.
But
that's just that's the hit that he got as a check playing lacrosse in the professional lacrosse, right?
Yeah,
it is. Yeah. You want to talk about nervous on pit road? I spent my Saturday hanging out on a pit box. My old buddy Dale Jr. got called in. They went to the bullpen, brought in the lefty. He stood on top of the pit. I will tell you, he was like a kid in the candy store. He was down there for practice. He was plugged in. He had a notebook. He was, regardless of what some may say, he was the crew chief. He was in the role. He was doing the job. And I hung out with him on top of the pit box. And then he goes to victory lane, making it look easy. 1 for 1. I think he had his interview. Let's listen to his interview. I mean, look at the smile on this guy's face.
And the hugs and high fives all around here. I want to give you time to give credit to all these guys that were sitting up here with you, because I know this was a team effort today in every sense of the word.
Yeah, it sure was. When we have an issue like this with somebody being suspended, Bummy and Marty and everybody, they know what to do. So just a great job putting us in a position to succeed. And we had a lot of things go our way, a lot of good luck, great strategy, had a little help from Letarte up here. I wasn't not going to have Steve Letarte get on this pit box after the races we won together in 2014, so he was a big help. But Pat, everybody on this team, just amazing all weekend long, and what a great race car driver. Connor Zilisch, he's going to be a big deal in this sport for a long time, so a lot of fun for me today.
Fun is an understatement. I'm going to tell you, crew chiefing's great when everybody does all the work. I just sat up there and hung out. I literally just had a scanner and my little TV earbuds in. I didn't have a radio or anything. It was so much fun.
You didn't give any type of advice. You didn't
Yes,
tap
he
him on
did.
the shoulder. Yeah. See.
No, I didn't say that. I
Yeah.
was there. So here's what
Just
happened. I
sit.
purposely got up there a little bit late. I sat down. We're like 2 laps into the race. And I'm like, Marty has a plan. He has some engineers here. Dale's doing a great job. Dale asked me to sit up there. I wasn't going to infringe. So I was sitting over there trying to be quiet. Well, you guys all know how great I am at that. So, so I sit there and I don't say anything. And then they're doing pretty good, going along. And all of a sudden, a caution comes out like a lap 40 something. I'm actually texting Todd. Him and I are texting about this. A caution comes out and they don't pit. And I'm like, oh, okay, they must not be short in stage 2. I'm just assuming this because I don't hear the conversations. I don't hear the digital radio. I only hear the main radio. And then I lean over and I said, so Dale, you're going to just run to your next fuel window. And he goes, no, we're going to shorten the stage. I'm like, whoa, red flag. I was like, nope. You can't do that. If you were going to shorten the stage, that caution, that's when you had to shorten the stage. Like that was the window to shorten the stage. Nobody else is doing that. So then he said, well, all right, well, then we'll pit after the stage. So I didn't say anything and I just was kind of going and I was like, man, I think you just run all the way to your next window because there's been all these yellows. You just don't have any green flag laps in your tires. And I get my little notepad out. I'm no engineer. I'm like, who has tires? 17. I'm kind of writing them down. So I'm debating if I should bring it up. So I kind of grab the engineer on the shoulder. I'm like, man, you can make it to the window, right? Yeah. So I kind of grab Dale on the shoulder and I'm kind of telling him what I'm thinking. We should run to this next thing. And I just let it be. And the engineer actually said, we talked about this week. So Todd, you and I had this conversation. Like the team had already done the prep, but sometimes it's a little bit of a blender down there and like it's not clear. And the advantage I had is I had like no dog in the fight. So it was clear to me because I was just sitting over there relaxing, drinking a water. I wasn't in the battle. And then, so they decide to do this. So then when the caution comes out and they win the stage and then he's not going to pit, Dale tells him very quickly on the radio, he said, Connor, we're not going to pit. And I said, hey, I want you to key the mic for like 5 seconds and then explain the entire plan again. And Dale's looking at me. I'm like, look, everyone's scanning you. There are times playing poker that you don't want to show your cards. This is not one of those times. You want everyone who can get on your strategy to jump on your strategy and restart between you and Chase Elliott in that rocket ship of the 17 car. So he did. He keyed the mic. He waited and he waited because then the scanners, for those who have never had a scanner before, like it goes from car to car to car to car to car. And if the mic's keyed up, it'll stop. And then he went through this like 20-second dissertation of what they're going to do. And I don't know if it moved anybody, but the 2 and maybe the 16 jumped on the strategy and the 2 held the 17 up. Now, in the end, the strategy, I don't think had anything to do with the win. Connor Zilisch, unfortunately, lost the lead on a restart, and the 7 and the 17 had their issue. And then Connor, who is an absolute wheelman, we've all seen it. This young man has a bright future. It was a great, great thing. With about 8 to go, I kind of looked at him. I'm like, all right, you're not pitting again, right? And he goes, nope. I literally got down and I had to do a prime shoot. I got on the golf cart, went out to the TV compound and listened to the rest of it on my scanner. But it was so much fun sitting up there. That junior motorsports crew that Marty Lindley, in the end, it's very simple. Marty Lindley brought a rocket ship and that fast cars fix about everything. Jeff, are you back with us? Is this the sound test for Jeff Burton?
This is really the only part of this show that I really wanted to be in.
You're here.
All right, you're here. Let's have it.
All right, Weaver. Here's the deal. Like a driver can get on the pit box and win a race, but a crew chief can't get in the car and win the race. So here we are.
I agree.
Here we are. I don't know what else to say.
Well, I can tell you there's a reason crew chiefs don't own jets. There's no disagreement from here. Like if Jack and House didn't have a jet, none of us were ever going to. So you are right, sir. I agree with your statement.
You know what was fun about that whole thing is that it did show this is a team sport. Mm-hmm. And the driver, sure enough, gets most of the credit, and he is the first one to get a pass because unfortunately, typically, the crew chief's going to lose his job before the driver, right? I mean, that's just what we've seen over the years. Ultimately, it gets to the driver if performance doesn't come. This is 100% a team sport. and you have to have everything. And Junior talked about it during the week about how his team was deep. He has really good people there. They have a plan. And so then in all seriousness, that gives an opportunity, for a guy like Junior to get on the box because you have so much support. But to think that any driver could hop up there and call a race with these two, that you can't, because this is all they think about. And strategy, when you go to Pocono, right off the bat that is going to be a strategy race, whether you like it or not. That's how it's going to be. And all the work that the crew chiefs and the engineers do, I mean, it is becoming a science. And that's why when they make the bad call, we get on them, right? Because it's so important to get it right. And it was fun to watch that whole thing, because it did, even though it made Junior was a crew chief, he talked about how he had staff and he had people and he had great work. And that's what it takes in today's race. And this isn't about just a crew chief up there by himself or a driver out there by himself. It's everybody working together.
And I thought it was good for the sport, because I don't think that's why they did it, right? Like, I don't think their goal was to make a story out of it, literally. And so I wasn't in the conversation. It's at least secondhand, so I hope it's accurate. But apparently Marty suggested it or asked Dale, is how I believe it happened, for hearing the conversations, right? Marty was like, why don't you do it, right? Because Mike Bumgarner's there. There's a lot. And Dale even said on one of his interviews, goes, there's 80 people that should have done it before me. But he was so invested. And I think that's, and he talked about in one of his interviews how, as an owner, the one thing he does miss is, like, his work is done before race day, right? He hires the people and gets the money and the sponsors, and he does the business side. So he goes, sometimes you can feel disconnected when your cars are winning. He goes, I love winning, I love competing, but it's not like I grabbed a tire or made a pit call. I just, I'm part of the ownership group, him and his sister Kelly. And he climbed down off the pit box, rolled a tire. Like, he was all in. He did the entire roll, top to bottom. Now, in the end, and he gave credit, it's Marty Lindley's team. And Marty is a racer's racer. He is dialed in from top to bottom. I think him and Connor are a great combination. But it wasn't a PR stunt. It was well covered. And I thought it was good. CW did an amazing job. I watched some of the coverage back, and I thought it was great for the fans and great for like, it was just win, lose, or draw. It was a great story.
Two things on the human element of this. I think it's so cool for me to see Isla and Nicole, Dale Jr.'s girls, walking with him hand in hand. I mean, it's a memory that they'll never forget, but a memory for Dale. And Dale is just such an incredible father. He's a great human. So I love that he had his two girls walking. They were there in Victory Lane. I saw Nicole hanging out with Tricky, the Pocono fox that's there. I just think that's an incredible family memory for the Earnhardts. But then, for folks that don't know Connor Zilisch, I kind of want to elaborate on his character a little bit. So the first time I met Connor was in Indy of last year. And this kid was, setting the world on fire. He had showed up at COTA, and it's like, oh, Connor Zilisch, where does this kid come from? And nobody really in the NASCAR world had, unless you had been following the younger talent on the other side of Racing Series, you didn't really know Connor. So we were in the driver's meeting. He walked up to me, and he's dressed in Trackhouse gear. He's not driving, obviously, this race. And it's the Sunday of the Cup Series. And he introduces himself. And he says, I'm Connor Zilisch. I'm a new driver I'm going to be working with Junior Motorsports and Trackhouse Racing. Just wanted to say hello. And I remember looking and turning to the Chevy reps. And I was like, who is that kid? And they were like, oh, it's Connor Zilisch. This is what he's doing for us. This is how he's come out. And ever since then, he has fostered a relationship around the media and around those of us that cover the sport, as he is mature beyond his years. He speaks, he says hello, he gives us hugs. He walks in, not arrogant and cocky, but just comfortable, and sets the standard of, I feel like, this new generation of racer that he has become. He's walking around with a Red Bull fire suit on now. He's hanging out with Max Verstappen at the Red Bull events. I mean, he's just such a quality kid. So I'm really excited. In my mind, it's a Cup Series championship for that kid in the next 10 years.
Hey, I'll add to that real quick. I think, Steve, you and I have talked about this a lot, about how, Joey Logano does this split personality. Like, you got to be one guy in the car and another guy out. Connor, at his age, kind of has that. Like when you talk to him, you're talking to this really nice young man that super manners and and then he puts his helmet on and he turns into a different dude. And I think that's required. I think that you have to find a way. You'd like to find a way to be a great human being off the out of the car, but then a self-serving guy that only cares about him and his team in the car. That's really the right mix. That's very, very, very difficult to do. And Connor at his age is doing a really, really good job of that.
It's impressive, and he does, and he's just fast, Todd. Like, I mean, he's a nice guy and fast.
Yeah, he's going to be in a Cup car soon. I mean, he's on a very high trajectory to get there. I want to touch back on Dale Jr. being there. You got to look at this. Marty Lindley wanted Dale to do it. I think there's a respect because Connor has to idolize Dale and understanding that. Just the communication pieces. It's the right call. It's not a PR piece. It's about having somebody that everybody on the team looks up to and respects and can give the information, and then a voice that can have authority. And if you bring your engineer up, then it becomes a question. It just brings more continuity to the race team.
And I will tell you some of the coaching he gave, and Dale, Jeff's much the same way. And Logano, they know so much they forget everyone doesn't. So, he's like, hey, you need a side draft like this and do this and do this. And he's giving this guy like play by play of what he needs to do different. And Connor is basically, absorbing it all. And it was so good. Like at one point he asked on the restart, he was like, hey, should I just not accelerate as much and let the two get there? And Dave was like, oh, no. He needs to get to your bumper. Don't do that. And Dale's giving this knowledge. There's so much there. That's Connor's first trip to Pocono. He doesn't know. Where else do you go? Hey man, we're going to run this funny 3-cornered oval triangle shaped thing with nearly a 4,000-foot straightaway. How do you learn a track like that without doing it? And he has Dale on the radio. We pick on me up there, grabbing a sleeve about strategy. That was more the fun part. What was magical was Dale coaching this guy, right? Focused on 1 car instead of 4 that he would have normally in the race. And just, hey, try this. You need to side draft. Check your mirror here. He's just giving this kid so much information.
And credit to Marty for putting this situation together, for asking Dale to put Connor in a position where Connor, this is additive to the program. This penalty was almost beneficial, not detracting, because now you've got a young kid, 18 years old. He's a month from turning 19 yet, who gets to get Dale Jr. to kind of talk to him through high-speed speedway racing. It's impressive and a great outcome for him.
It was outstanding. In the end, it was Chase Briscoe on Sunday in the Cup Series. Denny Hamlin won stage 1. He also scored the Xfinity fastest lap. No controversy this week. Just a fast driver who scored the extra Xfinity fastest lap. All the way to lap 122, though, way out in the race. Chase Briscoe, I want to leave on this note. We talk about how difficult the strategy is and how you have to do all these creative things. And Todd and I love it, and you can get lost in the fuel. But he's 3 points for, if you take the Xfinity fastest lap as well, of the perfect race. So he didn't get the Xfinity point, and he finished 4th in stage 1. So he was basically 4 points short of what would be a perfect 61-point day at a track where that's not supposed to happen. Right, Todd? It can't. You can't win the stages and win the race. That's all you talk about is everything that has to happen. We say that emphatically as a fact, and this is what these races are so difficult to understand because, Chase Briscoe was 3 points short or 4 points short of the perfect day.
First time ever the second stage winner has won the race.
14 races.
Todd waited 53 minutes. 53 minutes Todd waited to drop that. Now, he'd been holding that thing in his pocket, and he dropped that information right at the end.
Hey, a lot of road courses coming up. You're going to have very, very similar situations. Can you win stage 2 and win the race? Can you do both?
I said no unless you're Kyle Larson at Sonoma, and he proved us all wrong.
Yes.
The thing that I'm interested about this 19 team, though, is I'm interested to see what the mindset is now. If they go fun playoff mode, trying some things, what is this 19 team going to become over the course of this summer before we get to the playoffs? And I mean, Steve, you and I love to talk about this too, but I just want to point out the playoff picture, how many races are left, how many spots are available.
I'm glad we're doing broadcast and not on the box.
Briscoe, Wallace, those guys just above the line. The device is tightening. I think there's a couple that feel pretty good. They're like 100 and 160 points up, Chase and those guys. But the next three, the vice is, well, what it's here, right? The points. Let's see. So Chase is 160, Reddick at 107. I feel pretty good about. But Buescher 38, Bubba at 29, Bowman at 20. It's not the 38 points that bothers me. It's that, who else could win? Could Allmendinger win Hocevar could win, McDowell could win. Ty Gibbs back at 24th. I think, it wouldn't shock me if he won a race. Like, there are winners down here, and we started Atlanta, which
we have two speedway races and 3 road course races to come.
Jeff, you better tell Mrs. Burton to keep that stomach medicine she was handing out. She needs to give it to some of these drivers. They're going to need it.
It's the best time of the year. Gonna get fun. The more pressure filled it is, the more fun it is to watch, and the harder it is to be part of. That's why we love sports.
Well, speaking of, let's go to bracketology. First year of bracketology in the NASCAR Cup Series. We shift from Prime over to the Turner Network's TNT. Will host the next 5 Cup races. Jeff's going to be on True TV on the Altcast. And now we have it, the NASCAR In-Season Challenge. 32 drivers have been set. They've been matched up. And I'm telling you, we have some great ones. Hamlin versus Ty Dillon, Busch, Keselowski, Bowman against Logano. I'm not going to read them all. You can go on NASCAR.com, fill out a bracket for your chance to win $1 million. It's outstanding. It's presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. There's a million great matchups heading to Atlanta. Here's my 2 cents on it. I think every driver knows this exists. Every driver would love to win $1 million. I think you go to Atlanta, you try to survive Atlanta, you try to run as fast as you can and see if you beat the guy you're trying to beat. I don't know if there's a real big strategy. And then when we go from 32 to 16, then you take a breath and you say, okay, where are we? Who are we racing? And then, Todd, if I was on top of the pit box, I might try to identify that guy. I'm not willing to give up our strategy to advance. But if I can help my driver advance, man, I'm going to do what I can to do it.
Yeah, I think so. I think this kind of happens in the background. And I think for the crew chiefs, less of a focus on this. For the drivers, I don't know until afterwards when they get elated about where it ended up being. But it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool. And it's a great way to kind of follow it on the line and bring the betting side into these things.
My request from Kilo and John, can we get a Inside the Race bracket going? Because one of my favorite things in life is being competitive with Steve Letarte. So can we fill these out this week, and can we see how we shake out the rest of this Turner coverage?
I love this. It's a point for every matchup we get right, and whoever has the least amount of points owes everybody else a dinner. That's how we're going to do this.
Nice.
I've never in my life been part of this sport that they didn't offer a trophy that people cared about.
Right.
And I can promise you that people will downplay it when they get knocked out, but they are paying attention. There is no question. And what would you do with $1 million?
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And so you take money and then you put competitive spirit and pride on it. And there is no question in my mind, decisions are going to be made to try to help win this. And why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? You're not doing it. It was not going to jeopardize your race. You still want to finish the best you can, but you are competing against someone that you're probably racing against for points anyway. And so I just think this is additive. It's going to be fun to see the matchups are wild. Larson and Reddick, that's a matchup. I mean, you go through this field and start looking at them. It's some really, really good matchups.
And then the tracks. We start at Atlanta. Then we have back-to-back road courses, Chicago, Sonoma. And then we basically whittle it down to 4. And the 4 will then go to Dover. And then there were 2. And the 2 will go to the Brickyard. Heads up for $1 million. So it's going to be a great path.
How many drivers you think have cut their crew chiefs in on a percentage of what they'll get out of this?
Man, they better. Pit crew.
The whole BS though of these drivers, like, oh, I hadn't even looked at this, and I didn't even know it was for $1 million. I'm like, guys, it's $1 million. Let's act like you guys haven't been looking at this for the last couple of weeks. So
the fact that I think I can win dinner, I'm studying.
Yeah, I'm excited for them to actually acknowledge it now, because I see what you guys do in an all-star race for $1 million. So I know this bracket's going to be right up their alley. They're competitive spirits.
All right, everybody on here has social. Fill out your brackets. We'll post them on social, and then D'Lo will keep track of them. We'll let D'Lo and the production team as well take part. They get a free take part just to prove that they can beat us all. We won't make them buy us dinner, but I know they're going to beat us up. It's got like week 1 is tough. Atlanta's going to be crazy.
Yes.
They're not going to get easier.
No, they're not. Well, great. Appreciate y'all joining me. Great times. Looking ahead, Atlanta. I mean, I think it's the number 1 ticket in NASCAR. I think what we see out the window every time I go to Atlanta just blows my mind. I'm sure this is going to be no different. So thanks for your time, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, so much fun. Another NASCAR Inside the Race live post Pocono edition. Congratulations, James Small, Chase Briscoe, and everyone at Joe Gibbs Racing. There's nothing like your first. I know he has won 3 races before, but he finally delivered to Coach, who tabbed him to fill the huge shoes of Martin Truex Jr. Join our NASCAR Discord community. Send your questions in. We love to answer those at any time during the show as we can. And as always, this show is available live on YouTube or on demand wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe. This has been NASCAR Inside the Race. I'm the host, Steve Letarte.